continue on with our agenda. Item 4, consent agenda. Mr. Schrader? Or, a motion is in order to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion or any items that need to be removed for individual consideration? Mr. Schrader?
Yeah, can we move 4G to somewhere around 8A and a half?
Item 4G, emergency purchase late food lunch tables will be moved to 8G, the last item on item 8, resolution action items.
And then I have just a couple questions about the voucher payables, so I don't know if you have to move that off too, or we can just discuss it right now.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious about a couple of the charges that we're getting through Digger's Hotline. I'm like, I thought that's a free, it's not free for schools?
No.
Wow, that
It's
stinks.
specifically for one reason, it's our buried fiber.
Right, no, I get that, but I thought that was a free governmental,
Consumer level, you can request and they would come at no cost.
oh, but other,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, and then, how does it show up when we get reimbursed for, like, let's say there's a field trip, and we tell these parents, you have to pay X amount for the field trip, and that obviously covers the bus and gas and stuff. How does that show up on our end then?
You won't see it on the vouchers.
okay.
You will only see the payment, and then the student activity accounts reimburse the district through a revenue account.
Okay, so that just becomes a lump sum that just, okay. So it's kind of interesting to see if there's any way that you could actually see if what's coming in is actually covering what's going out.
They
I
do,
don't-
through their student
They do.
activity account, they have separate
Okay.
checking accounts.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. That was my two questions, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion on item 4 consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion, the consent agenda is approved with the exception of item 4G. Well, moving on, student representation, we have none. Item 6, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, we just would like to recognize Tara Weiss, who's the third teaching staff member who received the 2020 Herb Cole Education Foundation Teacher Fellowship Award. We had a couple here the last board meeting, and she was going to attend tonight, but given just where we're at, she showed, we said no worries. So just wanted to recognize her in front of the community here and the board. So congratulations, Tara. And then the next item is our athletes at the middle level who were conference champs for wrestling. And so it was a combined team of Muskego Lakes and Lake Danoon, and then all the student names are there. You sign their certificates, and we'll be sending those out to the coach, Matt Schenke, who will be distributing them during their, either their banquet or at some point in time to make sure that all the students are honored and recognized by the board. So we congratulate them. Also, just unembargoed today is the wonderful news that Lake Danoon Middle School, first time ever, and Mill Valley Elementary, who's received this a number of times in the past, received the Title I award. Both schools were recognized not just for high achieving, but also for the high progress. And so we're just thrilled that both schools are recognized by the state as really being able to meet the needs of students who, it's that gap closing function again. So we're really proud of their efforts as well. And then Jeremiah is here without the SROs, but to provide the annual report to the board regarding their efforts to date. Jeremiah for being the representative to talk about this.
Yeah, so because of everything
Officer
going on.
Johnson?
Because of everything happening around, they just asked to keep keep their distance away from any meeting places. So I'll just go through some of the things that we all put together to celebrate. There was a lot of things that they wanted to share too, and I'm sure we have other opportunities to do that. So within the presentation that's linked, you'll just see a little bit on slide 2 regarding safety. So just some things, big picture, that we're currently working on and some things that are in the works. We're still proceeding with our Storm Ready certification. So we got the certification this year, but it requires ongoing things. So the meteorologist, Mark McGinnis, will come and talk to our leadership team in a few weeks to continue that process and building our understanding and awareness. This year we've been working on something called a business continuity plan, which really is ironic because it is exactly what we're going through right now as a district. What do we do when we're in trouble, when services are stopped or supplies run short? So it's been an interesting exercise, and Tony has been doing a great job leading it for a long time, and we've been meeting on the coronavirus thing for well over a month now, talking about different things, and so continuing to be built as we speak. And then also along the lines of mental health training, there's been a district team that's been meeting with other district teams on a quarterly basis and building up a structure so that if we ever had a disaster of any type, maybe it's a student suicide, maybe it's a school that got taken down by a tornado, we can call on the services of these other school districts and they would supply us school psychs or custodians, or just building those partnerships. And it's been a really good partnership with that. And then in addition, on April 3rd, we were scheduled to host a adolescent mental health training here, but that looks like that will be foregone. But we're looking at 10% of our professional staff trained in adolescent mental health. If you go on to slide 3, very interesting. This was last week, Wednesday. This is just a very brief update. There's been so much more that's happened since, by the hour really, but we've just continued our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been so many things that have happened. You guys are well aware of a lot of it. We've 5 teams essentially that on paper are broke out to serve certain functions, and those have helped us be a framework as we work through all these conversations about what to do next. We've worked really well as a leadership team to really develop our plans and roll out what we're doing, and I can only say from the bottom of my heart, this has been just a crazy week, and I'm just so thankful to work alongside of all you guys. So that's enough of that. As far as the SROs go, there's some data that we've been collecting and shared with them, and they set goals around. On slide 4, you'll see the parent satisfaction goal with school safety, which continues to rise. So last year total was 4.33 on a 5-point scale. This year it's a 4.36, so we ticked up there. We can continue to see a small trend at the middle schools of a dialing back, so we're looking at asking questions to certain student groups to find out why is that happening. We've even dug deeper to find out which pockets of students this is happening with, and learned some really interesting stuff through Qualtrics about the students who don't feel safe. Next slide is the student safety. So we haven't done this survey yet this year, but this is last year's data. Again, a trend around middle school students and their feeling of safety. Next slide is school resource officers and really some of the things that they've stepped up over the last couple of years and things that they maybe always done, but they help us manage our visitors. So we use our Raptor visitor management system. If anybody ever gets tagged through there as being a sex offender, they would be one of the first to respond. They help us with threat assessments, so we do our thing, but also turn over any information to them. They helped us with our metal detector deployment at Lake Danoon, and we're going to help us this month at Muskego Lakes, but we'll likely forego that. They help us with our crisis manager editing. They help us with our off-site agreements, so if we ever have to evacuate our school, they're aware of where we're evacuating to. They've walked the sites and met with the management of those places. They facilitate all of our canine drug searches. They helped us with site assessments, so they actually come through. It was a community resource officer, assessed all of our sites inside and out for safety and provided us those reports, which we then fed to the state. They gave us added patrols, so you guys might remember in fall when we had the Waukesha South incident. They were here in storm at all of our sites, whether they were in the parking lots or in the buildings or greeting parents, helping to de-escalate any fears they might have. They have keys to all of our schools, which is something that's been newer over the past couple years, so if they ever have to get into our building, they can really get in. They have cameras in all their cruisers. They have radios in tune with the district as well. They help with parking and event support, and really do some nice things with community engagement, from Shop with a Cop. And I know Dylan did a technology session at the middle schools where he met with parents and talked about certain threats that come across technology or inappropriate websites, and that was really well received. Next slide is a little bit out of order. It probably should have been slide 6. It's the staff rating of school safety related to the school resource officers. So a continued incline of their satisfaction with school resource officers, and that's been by design. We've actually really tried to push for them to be at the elementary schools as well, so that they're not just at their home site, but they're visiting the elementary schools on a regular basis. So they each set goals for which day they're going to go there, what they're going to do. Are they going to greet parents in the morning? Are they going to have lunch? So we've really tried to broaden their reach. Last slide was really just a fun one with our football event. I forget who we were playing this night, but the parking lot was pretty much at 100% capacity. We had people parking on the softball diamonds, on the grass everywhere. And within minutes of realizing how big it was, Nick Fonz picked one of us up. We drove around and redirected traffic. They had road flares. And I say it's just awesome to have this much community out, but it's even more awesome that they recognize the need for their support and can direct traffic and really help us when we're in a pinch like this. So, yes, SROs.
I think it was the University of Arrowhead.
Yes.
We were playing that night.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you. Any questions for Jeremiah?
So, just looking at this picture is kind of intriguing to me. Can I ask you a question? It's a little bit off base of what we're talking about, but as long as this picture's up, or we can always bring this picture back under other business if you want to do that.
Go ahead.
That corner, so the north end of the football field to the east, where there's that green space between the road and where the football players are coming in, what do we use that for?
That's actually track and field discus, so you'll see some backstops. That's where they do some throwing. And actually, this year we put in the pole vault, which you'll see a little bit more of that infrastructure there now. So that pole vault was put in last year. So really track and field, and then it's a place where kids...
Pole vault is the farthest
North.
north, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Is that shot put there too?
I believe so,
shot
yeah.
too?
Yep.
And then just one other question. That softball field that's way west, does it get a lot of use or not really with these other two that we have?
I know when we do tournaments it does. These are the two main ones. That's more of like an auxiliary one. So I would say it gets the least use out of them all, but
I
it
don't
does.
think it's prepped to be able to be used.
Is that the one here?
The one by the two baseball diamonds in the back?
Yeah, there's one back there. It
Yeah.
gets used because I know the girls' freshman softball plays there.
Yeah.
Every time I.
But I guess I was just looking at those two areas and I was just thinking about the future of parking.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
since you brought up parking, it looks like there was still quite a bit of space over at the soccer field.
yeah, I understand. I'm
But
just,
do enough people know that we
Yeah.
have spots over there? Maybe kind of get some direction and maybe some signs, additional parking at the soccer, I don't know, so. That's kind of a side, I know, we kind of jumped away from the topic here.
well, the nice part is that that's the home side now. So I would think people will start to realize that really that walk is probably a lot easier than the front of the building.
Or
So-
getting out?
Yeah, getting out too.
That's the, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the feedback that you're getting from the students, and you're saying the middle school is slightly lower, or maybe you're anticipating, could it also be that because you've now pulled those officers out of the middle school to go into the elementary school, that they're seeing them less, possibly?
The amounts that they're seeing them less would really be a fraction of 1 day a week. So they're not there every day. It's like a 1 day a week visit.
But if you
someplace.
don't see your buddy there every day,
Yeah.
I just feel like maybe there could be a correlation with that possibly. I don't know. And then the one above was just parent stuff, not kids.
Correct.
So the parents are even feeling less secure, which is kind of interesting.
And when we think on a 5-point scale, the scores are actually really well, especially in the parent survey. I'd say the parent one is actually one of the highest indicators in the district. The student one could use some work.
But they're much lower than the high school and the elementary schools, the middle school, I don't know. Just seems odd to me. I don't know why parents would feel, unless it's not really security measures, it's more bullying or some other kind of issue going on within the school that they're upset about that safety element than
Yeah.
actual safety. I think when we think safety, we think, oh, you know, the glass is protected and, you know, there's ways to get out of the building and stuff, but maybe they're thinking more of safety with bullying or something that they're seeing on the bus, or who knows? It would definitely be something that I would dig in deeper to.
Well,
to
and
find
just
out.
as a reminder, we survey a lot, but we just don't get the data. We do what's called a rollout, and so there's an analysis of the results and then an action plan that's addressed. So they do dig in, and each school has an action plan specific to parent.
Well, and you don't have the number of how, like, this could be 10 people. Like, out of how many families? I don't know what the percentage of what your return is.
Oh, yeah, and the principals have that. I mean, they
Right,
do have.
right.
that.
Yeah, I know it's in the mix, it's just not
Yeah.
represented here. So, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? This could be 10% of the student body and not really, like, representing the
And again, this is
whole.
strong. I mean, you know, we look at a 4.3 or higher as something we just want to maintain on our surveys and each question. So when we're seeing something of a 4.2, you know, from parents, it's pretty strong. But yeah, it's still something that they are looking at it and they are digging into potential solutions why.
I would just add one more thing, not relative to the parent survey, but the student survey, which we actually deploy ourselves. There are 4 questions, and this safety question is one of them. If a student answers disagree or strongly disagree, it will prompt them to an open-ended response box, where they will have to explain why is it that you rated this disagree or strongly disagree, so that we can get a better idea or concept as to why they're feeling this way.
Right.
That data should be very helpful.
So when we achieve the goals and actually go beyond, like in some of them, they're fairly significant when you get that far up on the scale. What do we do to try and maintain? I mean, it's not like at the Lakeview, 4.33, and the goal is 4.25, correct? Do we just say, okay, everything's good, we're just going to ride the wave? Or what do we do to try and, I mean, it's tough to say, here's our goal, we've met it. We're not expecting the 5. But what can we do? Are we looking at ways we can still maintain to be better, or do we just kind of maintain what we have?
Well, I think this question is in a larger, I mean, there's a number of questions that are being responded to. And so this question might not be the question that they focus a lot of time on. It might be another question that's probably down in the 3s, you know, that they're really trying to boost up. So they might be looking at, they'll talk about all of those things, and that's why now, you know, the SROs are coming to the elementary schools. I think, like, we always try, it's continuous improvement, but it might not be the focus area right now. It might be letters home, or, you know, more direct information about student achievement, or, you know, things like that. So it really depends. They holistically look at it and then dive in and figure out what are the actions they're going to take based on parent feedback. So it's kind of a process, you know. So,
Because I think that you could get a variation of input from this question, because, I mean, even now, like they would do,
Right.
coronavirus is my scare, and I'm not safe because I could catch this bad bug. You know what I mean? Like, and you got, I don't know, it'd be really hard to kind of get in their brains to try to figure out why they're saying specific things. But I like the fact that you do ask that follow-up question, like, well, why are you answering it this way? What are those fears? Or, yeah, that's good.
anything else for Jeremiah, or? No? All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Yep.
The last item in the superintendent's report is just COVID-19, and I apologize. I could have updated this more. I had the email or the letter to parents from March 12th, but since then, quite a bit has happened. But I did want to bring this forward to the board because of the potential of a waiver from the Department of Public Instruction around hours of instruction. So when I wrote this last week, Thursday, or Wednesday, or whatever it was likely that the DPI wouldn't have made any decisions until after this was done. Like, we'll see what's gonna happen, and then we'll tell you whether or not we're gonna waive. But they do not waive for things very, very often at all, and they were very upfront with that, like, just so you know, we probably won't waive the hours of instruction. And then I put in on the 13th, and they're like, well, we might, we'll consider it. And then today, it was, we will. So we will waive the state mandated hours, but they're still expecting schools to continue with online learning. We see ourselves as an essential function within our community. We do believe it's important that students continue their learning. We feel it's as important for a kindergartner as it is for the seniors who are going to be walking out of our doors, hopefully, in May or June. So, there's a lot of moving parts. We're likely going to, look to ask the DPI and with board approval for a waiver that would be something maybe if, and again, this just came out today, they're going to give us more information in the next few days, but something like any hours that are not made up through our online or our virtual learning approaches. So whatever that looks like, however they want to count those hours, we're going to try to say, we're going to continue our plan and we're going to continue to educate our students, but there might be some hours, whatever those are.
Well, it's the number of hours that we're offering essentially the district for teaching, correct? Normally it would be in classroom, but if they're saying virtual, as long as we maintain the number of hours virtually, does it matter if only 6 students per class can log on, or do like 3/4 of the classroom have to log in for that to be a valid teaching hour?
Yeah, and it looks different. Like elementary, we don't have online per se. We have materials, and we look at the completion of those materials to some extent of as their attendance and their. So.
And does the DPI count that, or you think they will?
Yes, it's virtual, so they don't go by seat time. That's why it's completely different, But we're meeting with, districts virtually, just say, okay, what are you guys doing about this? What are you guys doing about that? It's sort of building the plane as we're flying it, and we're happy to see that there's going to be some consideration for the potential of not every single minute, not every single hour might have been made up. And so we're doing well. We feel like we've got a very strong plan. We know that our communities are, with kids not in schools and potentially families in crisis with regard to them not being able to work. And there's just so much going on. We also don't want to overwhelm our families. And we have, third graders sitting around a table crying because they don't have the support that they need to get through the homework and things like that. But we want to provide opportunities for them to learn. So there's a lot to learn yet, a lot of, important decisions to make. But we just wanted to let you know that this is now a clear likelihood, and we have no intention of stopping online learning or virtual learning. We're going to continue that. That's our responsibility. And, but we might be asking, we will likely be asking the Department of Public Instruction to waive anything that they don't deem that we've completed.
So are we extending our spring break for 2 weeks like the colleges are doing? So as soon as they come back from spring break, after, whatever that is, March 20, whatever, they're back to virtual online teaching?
Every
Okay.
school district.
I know everybody
did
does things
Every
different.
university did it different.
Yep, yeah.
So
But we did not extend our spring break.
there'll be another parent communication going out tomorrow from, more like from the district, reminding them that we're closed right now because of executive order from Governor Evers. We said, until it was just, we had a different end date, and now we're extending it through that April 5th because of the executive order. And we'll remind them of the spring break time where there won't be any learning. Teachers won't be teaching and there won't be for learning at that time. Next week.
I've got to commend you for getting that all together. I mean, it was a slow build, but all of a sudden it just hit us, and the staff just did a tremendous job of doing the best they could to get everything in place. I know it had to be difficult, so thank you for,
Well, thanks for the recognition.
and thanks to the whole staff for working
Yeah.
on that. I mean, it's,
Takes a team, for sure. I mean, and
It
you
is
can
nice
see
that
how-
everybody has a Chromebook.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it certainly does.
So,
Yeah.
that is a plus, because there's other,
Districts that don't have it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge plus.
And that we've had some practice, at least in our system, with our ACT days. So there was some confidence with teachers. We've been practicing this, if you will. And then some inclement days last year, if you remember.
Oh,
We
right,
had-
right,
we
with
had
the snow.
learning Also, so
Or the-
those opportunities build a lot of, confidence that we can get this done. It's not perfect. We're not saying it's perfect. We are, still learning and growing, and we're gonna keep doing better and better. So feedback is really important. We take it well. We want to do the best we can, so.
the question is this the shape of things to come
I know.
during our winter months? in the
Yeah.
fut- Not just with the illnesses, but with the weather and who knows what else. Are we prepared to do virtual learning at home?
Get you another one. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Really interesting.
Speaking of Chromebooks.
So I have a question, is what we're doing this week, does that count towards the same amount of hours that we would have been doing with in-seat school?
The next few weeks, actually. What we did is we took out the half-day for exams, half-day for the end of the school year, and any additional hours.
Two on the weather days.
And 2 inclement weather days, and then we have more hours in our calendar than is required. We're not right up to the minute. That's why when we have a inclement day, we don't have to make up that day. If we have a second one, we don't have to make up that day. And actually, for elementary, we have like 6. So what we did, so that we could build capacity, is we took those hours and said, rather than doing 6 hours every day, in this whole new learning platform, let's take those and divide those out over the next, like if we had to do this for 4 weeks, what would that look like? And that's how we got down to fewer hours every single day. But as we move forward, we will likely, from capacity for students first. Because if they're sitting there at their kitchen table and they have to work 7 hours or 6 hours a day, and they don't have somebody right there because of the limitations of virtual learning and limitations of material, just having material sent home for a third grader. So, yeah, we believe that this is the best plan that we have right now. Will we modify it? We can. We'll continue to learn and grow and figure out how that is, how we can best serve our kids, so.
Well, I just would rather not have to ask for a waiver
I think every school. in the
unless
state
it's
can.
absolutely, there's no way we're gonna be able to do it. But I don't wanna, I understand why you're cutting back, I get that whole thing, I understand that. But there's gotta be a point where we just say, we're gonna put the amount of instruction hours into this. We're not gonna cut back and hope for the waiver, or cut back and ask for a waiver, or ask for a waiver, get the cut back, and then not put the instruction time in. So,
Yeah, Eric, I want to really share with you the limitations that we have. We can't meet with kids, we can't.
No, I
confer with
understand.
them. I mean, there are a lot of limitations placed on our instructors, so, I don't know that I can confidently say that we would be able to move forward with a plan that would, without a doubt, provide every minute, every hour of instruction to our students, like legitimately. I don't think that we could say that after 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, because then we've used up all those extra hours. So, but I understand what you're saying and I hear you. I am likely
What
going to
is-
be coming forward to the board like every other superintendent in the state of Wisconsin, asking for something if it goes beyond the 4 weeks.
What would be, Eric, can you explain to me why you're so concerned about having a voucher or not having a voucher?
Having what?
Having a
Waiver?
voucher or not, a waiver or not a waiver? I mean, what would be the downside
I'm not worried
of
about
us-
having the waiver. I think that the expectation of our parents, of the students' parents, is that whether we're sitting in the school or whether they're sitting at home, they're receiving the amount of instruction that has been dictated by the state of Wisconsin. So, I mean, do we want to just shut it down in 4 weeks and say, yeah, it was a good year, let's move on to next year? Or do we want to try our best to put the amount of time in that the students deserve and are paying for and the parents expect? And that's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I guess I was under the assumption that the waiver was saying that you're not 100% guaranteeing that the students are actually sitting in front of their computer getting the knowledge that they're supposed to. I thought that's what the waiver represents.
Well, that's
or-
part of it, Mhm.
I mean, I get what you're saying, that we should be having that advantage of having those teachers be sitting at their computer and speaking with the, 30 kids that are in their class and interacting with them and all that, but I don't know how that's feasible with parents not working and families in disarray, and I just don't know how that's gonna play out. Some of them are now in daycares or with babysitters that they normally wouldn't be, and would that person put them in front of a computer to make sure they're getting their hours, and so I just don't know how that's gonna all work out.
Those are all the things that we're working through
Yeah.
from a lens of understanding and compassion for our community, that if this continues for weeks and weeks, that we also do not want to put that strain, that additional strain on families. But we are, as I stated in the beginning, we are committed to continuing learning. We believe that it is important for us to do that. We just have to understand the capacity of our families, capacity of our students, capacity of our community, over everything. So, but we'll have more conversation. We don't have any answers now. We don't know what we're dealing with. We didn't know what we were dealing with 3 days ago. So, I mean, it's continuously evolving. So I appreciate your support and understanding. Thank you, Brett, for your positive comments. It's really important to hear that. We're working tirelessly around this, so.
I have one more question for you. Somebody asked me today about, what about the support staff, the aides? Are we utilizing them at all?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent, okay. So they have do they have the option not to come in?
Yes, they can come in and not get paid, yeah.
Okay.
What are you asking about though?
The support staff, the aides, basically.
Oh, the aides, okay.
Yeah.
So what's going on with them?
Aides who, we sent out a survey today, if they opt to not work, they don't need to work, but we'll find work for them. This is all about the opportunity for, the Department of Public Instruction and others are indicating, like, if we can find work for people, let's not have them go through that trouble. So we are,
So they would come to school?
yeah.
So we would still have them in the schools? The aides would be here doing work?
Well, they're part-time.
Or would
yes,
they be doing
summer
work at
Well,
home?
They could do some learning at, we have like safe schools, for example, that we pay our aides to do. They would do that kind of stuff, potentially not on-site, but otherwise they'd be working on-site. We need support at the elementary level for getting additional packets and things like that. So they helped quite a bit, like getting those materials ready for them. And all kinds of just an array of different items that they'd be working on and supporting, so.
And are we, like, sanitizing the schools, for lack of a better word? Are we
Yeah.
going through and,
Yeah.
so they potentially could help with that if it's
Oh, yeah.
overwhelming for Jeremiah? Although Jeremiah has an awesome team,
Yes, he does.
it's still a big task, so,
Mm-hmm,
okay,
yep. Thank you for the question.
thank you.
I just wanted to say really quick that my experience at Mill Valley, having a first grader going through this, I can't believe how thorough the teachers put together these packets of what to do, ideas of what to do, how many minutes of everything you should be doing, and even down to, you know, the attention span of a first grader, breaking it up into small, manageable amounts of time. It helped us get through day one. My husband and I both realized that neither one of us missed our calling in being an elementary school teacher today. But they did a really, really good job. Like in every subject, there's different things to do and different things to do, and then logs where you're putting your time and things like that. It really was a good setup for a last minute thing, so they did great.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? And as you hear things, if there are things that we need to do better, that's our job. We want to hear that, so.
There's one more thing, if I can. I was going to do it during the reports, but I may as well bring it up now. Tomorrow, the WSB is going to have a webinar, free to all board members, covering so far what they know about the coronavirus, what legal steps we have to take. Have you received anything on that, perchance?
Likely, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to? Okay. Did everybody receive that?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't. Can you send it to us?
I did.
Kelly, can you explain to me how you go about
Are you sending that out, Julie? Okay, thank you.
notifying the parents, like with the TV entities, the mass media, about closings or what's going on with the school and stuff? Because we weren't technically closed, we're just doing online learning. So how does that get like put out there into the media? Like, do you send that out, Tony? Or who's the one that sends that out?
So if you're talking about the media, like.
Like
when we do a
WISN, Fox
When
6.
we do a closure, like if we have an inclement day, when, like any inclement days, I would call the bus company, and part of their contract would be you then report to the news outlets. And that was just, they get the, you know, the codes and all that kind of stuff, and so they do that. That's just part of what they do. So during this whole thing, Julie stepped in and contacted Dairyland to let them know. Oh, was it Jamie? Sorry, Jamie did, okay. And then, so then the transportation would take that, so Dairyland essentially.
So they do.
They
I
did,
thought
they
that
had some trouble because usually on the websites it was for snow closing. So the only options you could put in was Friday through Friday, Monday through Monday. It wouldn't let you go a full week or type a start and an end date. So the schools that had closed for virtual learning, most of them had done it the day before, and they contacted the media specifically and sent out a message. We have done that today. With a good amount of them, but.
Because I think you're going to get confusion with families thinking, you know, like, we're not in school, then the kids don't have to do anything and we can go on vacation or
We're
something. You know what I
sending out
mean?
another parent
Yeah.
message tomorrow. And so
Yeah.
thank you for working through to make sure that it doesn't say closure, that it says, or virtual
Yeah.
learning, yeah.
Okay.
Fox 6 is still not updated. Call. Contacted and called.
They're swamped too, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
we have
there's
to
a-
physically enter it, so.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, right? Okay, thank you. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. On to item 7, other reports, a president's report. So I just have a few comments. I'm not going to labor this, but this is certainly an unprecedented time, and as Dr. Thompson has said, trying to go from face-to-face to virtualized learning is not an easy task. I can certainly appreciate what Eric says, and I think we all expect, right? that online learning to be robust. And I think that teachers and staff also need to expect that the students may not always be there, depending on what's happening at home. So we really don't know. And I know that over the course of the last few days, I think Muskego, Norway was already, for those of you that don't know, was Dr. Thompson and her staff were in consultation with public safety, the DPI, constantly, and actually made that choice to close schools before right before the governor did. So clearly we're on the right path, and we have a staff and a superintendent that is going down that path, right, in a very, very robust and I'm trying to think of the word, but help me here.
Meaningful?
Deliberate
Meaningful.
or
Thoughtful.
meaningful way. And just some feedback I've received. I mean, I agree with what Terry had said, that the 3 elementary schools and the aides that were able to just come together on that Friday and within hours develop these packets and in the middle school, relatively the same thing with the amount of aides that were involved trying to get those packets even delivered to their homes, where they couldn't get them before they got on the bus. At the high school, developing these drop-off points for homework and stuff, that the aides are there and the parents can pick up. I mean, I've seen my daughter go through that, just a tremendous, and it's just incredible that the staff and students, and I know this cannot be directed from the top to do this, and this, so this is coming from that discretion being given to the teachers and the individual schools to come up with these creative solutions. So I'm really hoping that parents are getting that, because I think we're delivering it, and I certainly understand the capacity where you don't want to cram it, right? There's a point, so I certainly appreciate all of that, and I think the district appreciates it too. So, and I appreciate the board allowing our superintendent to tackle this, to basically following our process to ensure that she is the single contact. And I think that is also a comment I've received, that we have one contact, we have a very, like 3 or 4 of the social media sites that information goes out on. People know exactly where to go to get that correct information. We are district specific. Anything regarding the health emergency is directed to those appropriate agencies. No one's trying to, so absolutely phenomenal. I've received feedback on that, so thank you very much. And like I said, these are certainly unprecedented times, and very much appreciated to everyone, and parents included, who have to deal with this, as we still don't know the full in part. And I doubt very much the way it looks. I mean, we should all be planning for this to be much longer than what we're looking now, probably through April, if I was guessing, so. I have no other reports other than that. Moving on to the clerk's report.
2 district residents are needed to assist the school board clerk, myself, with the canvass of the April 7th, 2020 school board election. The canvass will be held on, Jamie, when would you like the canvass being held?
I believe it's the Wednesday after the election on the Tuesday, so the 8th or the 9th.
Okay.
I think the choice is yours.
8th or 9th? Okay,
When is the election?
The 7th.
7th.
And when does it have to be turned in?
We have the following week.
Because I think Dar had typically pushed it off to that following Monday because.
But Dar's
Again,
not here anymore.
I know, but the reason was getting all the information together very often could take that full week to get everything.
It's
So-
usually the town of Norway
Yeah.
that.
I think that was the
we
holdup,
wait,
yeah.
And they don't usually come in until Friday,
Yeah.
is usually the key. So if,
May-
you may want to consider that, or you have to.
Since this is your first time, may I suggest doing it on the Monday, just.
So we have done it on Monday before, because town of Norway usually doesn't get it to
Right.
us till later on Friday.
I was under the impression I had to go there and get it, so.
You might have
You
to.
may have to.
They might just not have it available till
Typically, I
Friday.
think, well, once you have the ticker tapes and the numbers from Norway and Muskego, I think then you can just arrange the date. If you get them on Thursday, you could do it on Friday or Monday, you could just do it
We
anytime
could
you
push it
want.
the following week if.
All right, let's
just
plan on
a
doing it Monday.
little more comfortable.
Location will be here. Do you have a preferred time?
Whatever works for you.
Who would like to do it?
I'd be happy to help.
I cannot.
What time works best for you?
I can arrange pretty much any time during the day. Just let me know, and at least a weekend.
No, they don't have school, or, I mean, that's the Monday after Easter, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the Tuesday.
Well, we can still do Monday after
So
Easter.
they have no school, no school.
Yeah,
No school, no school.
whatever works.
I'm not going anywhere. I can do it on Monday, but I'd rather prefer to do it like early so I can get to work. So,
What's the earliest you could do it?
Like, are we saying 8?
No, what time do you typically get here?
8.
8 would be good.
I can come
I
in
can do 8. That's Monday
Send
the
me a meeting
13th.
request,
here. I will.
so I remember.
Bob, Cassandra, and Terry? Anybody interested on the 13th
Bob can.
at 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I think you only need 2.
You need
You
two
will
and
have the
me,
coffee and
but
donuts
you
ready,
may-
right?
I may not be able to.
At least the coffee.
Oh, got it.
I'm spending a lot of time in my other location for my
Got it.
job right now. So I'm just looking for a backup in case I can't. Terry?
I have to work as much as I possibly can.
I figure that. Cassandra, you don't have a, well, I shouldn't say it.
She might be on vacation.
But you can get somebody from, if
I think we've
Brett-
only had 2
Yeah, well,
people
if
do it.
Brett and Tracy, you could just grab someone from the office. That's the Muskego.
Blake has been very good.
Yeah.
Cassandra, you busy that day?
Jeremiah lives in Muskego.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
There you go.
Okay,
No, that's the day after
I think you're
Easter.
good.
so did she say no?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it'll be Brett and Tracy and probably me, and if not, Jeremiah. Okay, Jamie, did you get that?
So we're not even in the building that day, so maybe we push
This
it
is the first year where we have
to
the
Tuesday?
Friday and Monday.
Oh, is Tuesday enough time?
Do you need a?
The following Tuesday, so the
Okay.
14th.
Would that work for you, Tracy?
And is that okay, like as far as the statute?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So 8 o'clock, Tuesday, the 14th, unless we hear from Jamie that that's,
It should be, I have clinical that day, but it's virtual, so it's been quite interesting, but I think should be able to pull it off.
All right. So Tuesday, the 14th at 8.
Tuesday, the 14th at 8. I
Jeremy?
will just confirm
Jeremy.
with everybody.
Jeremiah, you're gonna have to do it because I can't do it Tuesday. I can do a Monday morning or a Friday late, is all I can do.
You'll be the acting.
Okay.
Yeah, painting a
I
canvas.
can have Melanie also
Oh,
help
yeah,
because
that's right.
she knows things.
Just send me a meeting request.
Okay,
Okay,
so
perfect.
Christopher, it'll be Tuesday, the 14th at 8 a.m. with Mr. Hyde, most likely Mrs. Blair, and one other resident.
Got it. And then Brett will be the acting clerk if you're not there.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. Does that end your report?
Yes, it does.
Board member reports, we open for board member reports.
I just have my meeting tomorrow, which
Okay.
it's still on, and I know there's over 10 people there, so, so we'll see.
We'll see. Anyone online have a report?
No.
Anybody else here?
No.
All right, no other board member reports, committee reports, we have none. Moving on to item 8, resolution action items. Item A, 403B, plan document revisions.
Motion to approve 403B plan document revisions. So moved.
We'll have to read the resolution language too in the event.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. I thought it was in there, really.
The recommended action?
It is.
The whereas? and the-
We have to read that?
Yep.
Okay. Whereas the district currently maintains the Muskego Norway School District 403B plan, the plan, and whereas the district desires to restate and amend the plan to comply with final regulations issued with respect to the Internal Revenue Code Section 403 Sub B, and to streamline the administration of the plan. And whereas the district has worked with WEA member benefits and outside counsel to prepare a draft copy of the amendment and restated plan document. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved that the plan is hereby amended and restated in substantially the same form presented to the board, and further resolved that the superintendent, assistant superintendent for business and human resources, and appropriate delegate or delegates are each individually authorized to direct the finalized the plan document, including the right to make technical or administrative corrections and changes, and to execute the final document on behalf of the district on or before March 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
So what was the reason we went with the WEA?
So WEA is our primary vendor. We do have a number of vendors, but they're the ones that are primarily used. They actually drafted the plan document that was pre-approved by the IRS and has offered it up to people who utilize their services. It is the exact one with the exception of a few changes that our attorney uses. So we were able to get the document put together for free and then have the attorney review it, which was much cheaper.
So it's just going back several years to when we had WEA for health,
Yep.
and we couldn't get out of it.
Yep. This is completely different.
We have full control of determining if we want to go with another.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This doesn't make a determination as to changing the vendor status of any of our current vendors.
Okay.
So everything stays the same. The primary difference with this plan document is simply that in 2009, the IRS said if you have a 403B plan, you have to have a plan document. What it says, kind of up to you. You know, they really didn't have strict guidance. And now, this many years later, they now have strict guidance that we have to follow. And in order to remain tax exempt and have a tax exempt plan, we have to utilize their language, and this allows us to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8B, flooring replacement.
Motion to approve Adair Flooring to complete district flooring projects in the amount of $232,846.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion by the board?
So are any of these, we don't have any more asbestos tiles in the district, do we?
Actually, at Lakeview, we did testing, and there was some that were hot, and we'll have to get mitigated before we can replace. So we'll bring in the guys in the hazmat suits after school's up and mitigate it, and then put the new stuff on top of it.
How much is there of
It's very
that?
random. There's spots that came back old.
Sort of like the originals and then there were replacements around. So will that be the end of our asbestos tiling, or?
We always test everything. I mean, even things that were built in the 90s were never guaranteed. So just for safety, if we were going to knock out a wall in here, we would test it. You just never know. It's still installed in products today, like brake pads are made of asbestos, so it's still a common product that's not like illegal, but something we definitely don't want in the schools.
Then what is LVT? I'm assuming a vinyl tile?
It
What's
is.
the
L is luxury, but if you go to Muskego Lakes, it's what's in their cafeteria. So we went with two different types of this product during the construction of Muskego Lakes, and the more resilient of the two, they're both great, is the one in the cafeteria. I mean, it's held up all year to last 2 years to lunches and lunch tables and traffic, and it looks still new. So the good thing about it is you don't need to put floor finish on it, which saves us 4 to 5 coats of finish and labor every year, not to mention the stripping process of taking it off. So a lot of water saved, a lot of chemicals, and it's pretty resilient too, so.
Jeremiah, can you tell me, what am I looking at for the high school? I don't even know what hallway this is, or,
At the high school, we're only doing the library and 5 classrooms.
oh, that's the library?
Yeah. We're still just
So
with
are
the
those
mass.
like where the, like the counselor's offices are, south of there?
I believe those are computer labs, or labs.
That's not
But essentially where the
counselor
kids have been sitting
offices?
for the last 20 years, and the rolling chairs have just kind of created these rolled spots wherever the chairs are. So this is the highest priority for the high school.
I think she's asking on the far left, the,
South of the, like,
Yes.
green and
Is that the
stuff?
health
Those
room?
are the, no, isn't that like the counselor's offices and stuff?
I think that's between. to
If
the
you were to
right.
look down from the library, that's the counselor's office. If you look to the left, that's the lab spaces that will get done. So,
Business marketing,
Yeah.
information technology.
Got it. Yeah, because isn't it like the Warrior Warehouse on the corner there?
yeah, right on the corner.
Yeah, okay. I would not have picked that up from that map.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thanks.
Item 8C, replace Muskego High School water heater.
Motion to approve. Wow.
Yeah, good luck.
How do you say that, Jeremiah?
Kolakowski?
What is it?
Kolakowski?
Kolakowski Plumbing to install a new water heater at Muskego High School in the amount of $20,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of the board?
Yeah, it says in the amount of 20,000, but below it says the bids were for 49,000 and 72,000.
Yeah, good question. So you might remember when we were back at Lakeview for the board meeting, I brought forward, so we have 4 big water heaters at the high school, 2 plants, so 2 controlling 2 different sides of the school. So one of the 4 failed, and it's attached to another one. So the good news is we had redundancy, so we had a failback. However, they do operate with like integration software, so we can control water temperatures. And so the one we're replacing is about 20 years old, and now it's attached to a brand new one that they're not just talking to each other. So my plan, and I talked to you guys then, was to come back, and this will be a after July 1st purchase. I was tight last time I talked and was able to do the one heater. This will be the second one. So in all, in total, both of them were $49,000. We had to do some repiping and ducting for the first one. That's why it was more than the second one.
And what budget is it coming out of?
This will be our capital projects budget, Fund 41.
I'm sorry?
Capital projects budget, Fund 41.
The 20 or the whole 49.6?
The other one, it was just out of my operations budget, and Julie was working with DPI to see if we can cost share with food service, because it is actually attached to the food service, which is our largest consumer of hot water in the entire building.
Oh, that's right.
The waivers.
The
that's
discussion
what
at,
it's waiving or-
that's right, at Lakeview, we had that discussion.
Correct.
So when were we able to start using Fund 41?
That's, you're thinking 146.
141 is the one that we always have, that just helps us amortize the cost of those projects. It's the one that's reversible with 110. 146 is that separate fund that we cannot use until this coming summer.
Right.
So is Fund 41 basically, that's our old capital
Correct.
fund?
Yes.
And how do we put money into that?
So we designate
whatever amount of money we're going to use for capital projects for the year. And when the board at the annual meeting approves the tax levy, we approve a separate tax levy for Fund 41. That's specifically that dollar amount.
Okay.
If we would not approve that levy, that would roll into Fund 10 levy. It just allows us, because of where we are in the aid formula, to have those shared costs split over a number of years.
So is that basically his 750?
That is his 750, correct.
Or
We
790.
put it all into Fund 41.
Oh, okay,
Correct, yep.
gotcha.
So if, in the future, if we were wanting to do something out of Fund 46, like, that was a surprise, how would you change the list to do that? Does it have to come to the board in order to change that list for Fund 46?
The only thing, well, we would bring most of those purchases to you just simply because of the cost.
But we'd have to change the capital.
We would only have to change the capital plan if we did
Plan.
not already have it on the capital plan.
Right.
So
Okay.
the capital plan, we would bring forward, probably at the same time, we would bring forward the maintenance, or the capital plan that Jeremiah brings
So it
forward
can be
every year.
done the same night?
We would bring the 10-year one at that time if we needed to make an adjustment, but a lot of what we would be looking to purchase is probably already on there.
Okay, thank you.
Except we'll have to add turf.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Jeremiah, before you go to the next one, were you gonna do a report in the previous, because there's like a slideshow presentation?
In the flooring one, I just wanted to remind everybody, it's always a bit of a distance from the time we originally talk in November to this time, so sometimes it feels a little bit like anxious, like, whoa, where'd all this come from? But this is all discussed in November at Muskego Lakes when I did the capital plan, and I just wanted to attach that just to refresh everybody that I've not changed course. This is what we talked about.
Okay.
I've been spending all the time since then procuring bids and doing job scopes, and this is the culmination of that. So,
Item 8D, parking lot replacement.
Before I say this, Jeremiah, should this be, it says Pavlaki, but should this be Merritt?
no, this is Plablocky. They actually were at 70,307, so it was a lot of negotiating over the last week, so it was actually a new switch today. So the numbers just got finalized on Friday.
Oh, okay, so the line under public comment, these projects were bid out in the winter was Merritt Asphalt, should be Pavlaki?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Correct.
Motion to approve Pavlaki paving to complete various parking lot projects in a total of, is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
$115,011.
So moved.
Okay. I don't see where you're seeing the. 'Cause I got 70, that's why I'm like,
You have to add the two together.
Yeah,
oh, you gotta add, okay, got it, okay. Second. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right numbers.
Discussion.
Okay. Yes.
So you'll see the two, right? You'll see the one on top, the one.
I see Lakeview and
Oh,
ES.
above that, you'll see.
She wasn't scrolled down
Oh,
far
I
enough.
see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see the,
Got
yeah,
it.
it was lower.
so,
So we're now discussing this.
so the Bay Lane Elementary, we're expanding that area to the south of the building.
That was something that, up until last Friday, I was told I'd get bids on, and I was not able with everything going on, so I did not get the bids for it, but I'm guessing it's gonna be around 20 to 25,000, and that would be to, if we bring in 4K, just to relieve some of the parking up front, and people would be able to park south of the school. So just expanding, if you look now, there is a drive lane, we would just add on to that so that we would have people parking north-south along the backside of the school.
And who would that be, primarily teachers? or-
Teachers, yep.
Okay.
So would that be staff parking only then?
I would think so. We want to keep as much open as we can in the front for visitors as they come in.
Okay. Because even with 4K, we're not changing the entry point, right? I mean,
Correct.
So you're really, the purpose of this is to draw staff off of the front and allow more room for parents, right?
Correct. That'll be something I'll have to bring back to you guys once I get the numbers.
I'm sure it's gonna be used during baseball season too.
But it was, even though it was grass.
Yes. So maybe you'll save your grass.
As far as the Lakeview parking, part of the last referendum made some big changes. Remind us again, where were the, what was covered under the referendum, which areas on the,
It was
if I remember right, it's the area to the north across the street, that was part of it?
Sure, if you click into the image, it doesn't capture the whole scope, but you can really see the faded line where the new parking lot is. So we essentially moved the playground chipped area, added drainage to that, and then you can see the outline of the faint new parking lot where it is. So the old parking lot bleeds through a little bit on the image. So we went further south to add additional parking behind the school, but we did not redo the parking lots on the east or west sides of the school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item 8E, gifts, grants, and bequests.
Motion to give thanks for the following donors: Muskego High School Robotics, ACS Group, $500, MSOE, $500, Touchpad Electronics, $500, and for a total of $1,500, and Ascension T-shirt sponsorship, $4,000, for a grand total of $5,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What were the T-shirts for?
Thank you.
Robotics, I believe.
Yeah, robotics.
Robotics?
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cool. Their shirts are really cool.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they cool?
Are they
Create
cool?
them. No, the way you see them, they create them and they, during the reveal, they like revealed what their new logo is.
Oh.
And that's the whole idea. They create their own. They're pretty neat.
Did you get one, Chris?
Oh, and. But, anyway, back to discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now to item 8G.
4G.
I'm sorry. Well, it's 8G, but
Okay.
from, yeah, so 8G, but the item pulled from consent. Emergency purchase, Lakeview lunch tables.
So really it'd be 8F,
F, yeah.
which would be 4G.
I just skipped up.
Depends on what alphabet
I
you're
just
going with.
skipped up. I could call it
Okay.
a letter I want.
Okay. Motion to approve the purchase of lunch tables for Lakeview Elementary from MBS for a total of $34,600 to be paid out of the food service fund balance account.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So can we just hear the history on this request?
Sure, I'll start. You guys might remember when we were back at Lakeview discussing some of the food service fund balance account and some desire to potentially spend some of that down, and Julie could probably talk better about that than I can. So after we met there, the following week, I said, what is included in purchases that we could use for the food service fund balance? If equipment's all good, is there anything else included? And we talked about a number of different pieces of equipment that could get replaced. Lunch tables were within that. So I did ask the high school and Lakeview to get some numbers together if we were to buy some lunch tables, what it would cost. Ironically, about 2 weeks ago, the gym was occupied and one of the lunch tables fell straight out of the wall with students in there, and it just fell. The principal reported it to me, and I just said, let's take a look at it. Most of the parts are not easy to find anymore, and a torsion bar for some of these devices to get replaced could run like $1,000 per table. So we're looking at tables that are really hard to lift up now. They essentially need to lift in the middle and slide up and get put back into the wall. We have had lifting injuries, not within the last couple of years, but in the past with lunch tables. And knowing that they were falling out of the wall, I came to Julie. I said, hey, we have gotten bids for this. This is something that seems to be expediting, and I think we should move forward with an emergency purchase because they take time to manufacture and even get delivered here. So and installed. It may be a late summer add, so at times when I'm giving you guys emergency purchases, it's something just to get the ball moving for something that could take months and months to get installed. So we're continuing to preventative maintenance everything, PM it, and do what we can to keep things moving along. But I thought it would be an opportunity to utilize funds that we have through the food service funds and address a need that is becoming a safety concern.
So these are the,
Go ahead.
these are the same tables that will be going into the wall?
Correct.
They're not like standing alone tables?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even think they made those anymore.
So the reason I pulled it is, my only issue is, and I'm not saying that this is not a need at this point or should be in the near future, but, I mean, the idea about budgeting for physical needs in the future, I think, is the reason that we do budgets for capital items. And I've just noticed over the last couple of years, it seems like either we've had an increase in emergency purchases of capital items, or else they were never presented to us that way in the past. I'm not really sure. And then when we talk about emergency purchases, and I don't think this is the case, but it also, it makes it sound like either Jeremiah or us aren't planning properly. So every time we have an emergency purchase on the agenda, that makes me feel a little awkward about our people looking at that saying, why are we doing emergency purchasing? Are we not planning for what we need in the future? And I know there's a lot of different reasons for why these things come up. Some of them we just have no control. Some of them we kind of do have control. So my thought is, and I just wanted to put it out there, and we can proceed as we have been, but just as for perception of the school board and the administration, I think if we can budget and plan and see our 1-year plan, our 5-year plan, our 10-year plan for capital items, and we try our best, even in a case like this, maybe take that one out of service. And I understand that's going to be difficult when you only have 10, but take one out of service and then budget for it in July. It sounds like we might not get until July anyways. But to me, the perception to the public, I think, is better if we're showing a plan instead of emergency purchases. Now, I know the sewer out here, over here, that's something that we couldn't do anything about. A water heater going out, that's something you can't do about. But maybe I'm looking into this a little deeper than I have to, but I think it makes us look better, I think it makes you look better, and I think it makes you look better if we're planning for these things, especially if they're not really deep down an emergency. There's other things we could do with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, sure. And I think,
And by no means am I saying that you're doing anything improper, or you are, or Kelly is, or the board is. I just want to make sure the community doesn't question.
yeah.
Maybe it just was the terminology used that was uncomfortable to me.
Yeah, and I think when we look at, like, some of the things that are uncontrolled, like the water heaters, for instance, those are on the capital plan, and we're planning for them at some point. And if we get to that year and it hasn't failed yet, I think the idea was, let's not replace it, let's wait till it fails, knowing that it could happen in a year or two. And, maybe we can think differently about if, we just don't want to bring forward things that aren't broke, knowing that they probably will have to be replaced, and then we have to adjust the capital budget to account for those things. And I think coming forward as an emergency purchase was more, it's a safety issue, we got to get it done. And we still need the board's approval, and we want the board's approval, obviously. It's the discussion action, and sometimes with our meetings being a month apart, that creates a barrier. So I don't know if it's easier to say, the water heater was on our plan, unfortunately it went sooner than we anticipated. Can we bring it forward for discussion and move to immediate action instead of, I don't know how that looks. But some of those things, we don't want to bring forward and replace if they're not ready to, or we can spend the funds in other areas that are more critical. And I think that just goes to our capital plan having so much on it still.
I would think in this case, since we had that discussion in December, I think, on that food service account, right? So I wonder if just the verbiage, emergency, it is emergency for safety's sake. However, for planning's sake, we're probably like, well, right? But we also had this discussion on the food service fund, so, which is substantial. And if there is a need and they're gonna, we won't take delivery of this until, maybe July or August, where does it come out of? And I think we were unclear even back in December if what we could use that fund for, right? So, maybe we can try to work out some verbiage that doesn't, like advertise some, that wouldn't paint a picture of ineffective planning, which we know is not happening, but.
I think for me, like, an emergency purchase would be something where they are asking for us to take it out of Fund 10. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're gonna take it out of his budget, we've even let him plan things ahead of a 2020, 2021 budget year to get them moving in the right direction. And this would be the same thing. I think if it came back to us as, this is something that we don't see we will get till August, we want to, start the ball rolling on it, I don't see that as an emergency purchase. Where I see emergency purchases is if we're taking it out of our savings, out of our fund balance. And I don't know, maybe we just need to change our terminology, because I pre-plan a lot of things in my house, which I don't deem them, I guess, as emergencies. I'm just getting ready to proceed with that purchase out of money that I have to proceed with. As opposed to something where we got to take it out of fund balance because there is no other option left.
Right.
To me, that's an emergency purchase.
So there's a couple things on my end, and I just appreciate you guys' support, as always. So when I come forward, I use the term emergency purchase because that's the board policy. There's a policy, emergency purchases, and just as Julie talked about, it's tough when I have something broken now, but I may have to wait 3 weeks to ask you guys about it, and then another 2 weeks to wait for action. So there's certain things that really need to get moving, and I totally appreciate what you're saying. Like, nothing that I've come forward through emergency purchases outside of that major pipe leak, which I think we finished under budget that year.
Yes, you did.
Even with, I'm using pre-approved budget, in which I've budgeted for emergency situations within. So, yeah, I'm not coming asking for anything other than to spend the money on something I have broken. And what I shared with a couple of you in an email this week is most of the stuff I do, my job is just fixing broken stuff all day long. It's something broken that you guys will typically see in a voucher, but once it hits that threshold of 10 grand, you guys have to see it here, and if it gets above 17, then we got to talk about it. So, I mean, a lot of my counterparts, and this isn't saying what I desire to do, have never gone before a school board, ever. And these are neighboring school districts. This is their job to get stuff fixed. So for the bulk of what I do, it's just this. But in these times, we require a formality of me coming and asking. So it's
more of an emergent task, not an emergency maybe, but maybe it's our own policies that are guiding you in this, and maybe we need to look at what Eric says, how do we differentiate those types of purchases that come through, and then how do you line them to the accounts. So for us, we're not thinking it's over budget, because at the beginning of the year, the board approves the budget, and that's it. And that's what we really want the district to operate within, and if there are emergencies that happen, I'm thinking there's probably 5 or 10% of that budget that's allocated for stuff like that. In this case, that probably wasn't the case. We just had some uncertainty on that food service fund.
Yeah,
right?
the food service, and we had uncertainty on the water heater, but tables for sure, slam dunk.
So, and
no
I was
problem.
unclear
Yeah.
that it was going to the food service fund, and so maybe we just need to relook at our policies to better help you align, right, how you bring it to us, so you're not being, and I hope you don't feel like you're being tossed here. You're not.
Well, I have a lot better understanding of what I asked earlier I really didn't have that understanding, but if we look at the policies, I mean, as a taxpayer in any community I've ever lived in, if I ever saw emergency purchase, I either thought they were taking a loan,
Sure.
or they were taking it out of their fund balance. Rarely, I don't know if I ever would think that an emergency purchase would be budgeted, which these are all budgeted.
Right.
So maybe we need to change our policy to reflect how we feel, you, us, and probably the community, I would expect, as to what an emergency purchase really is.
I feel like it could be like elective, like this is the stuff we need, and urgent being this needs to be, and then critical is like, you gotta fix this right now. And I feel like this was an urgent need. It's not something that's critical, but it's urgent. It's not elective because it's obviously something that needs to be done. So, I don't know, it just feels like it's urgent, not critical, but
One other
And it's the
strategy
bit-
I
oh,
was,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, one other strategy I was thinking about is when I bring forward my capital projects, I can give you guys a list of things that are at life cycle or beyond that we're continuing to maintain and believe we could still get years out of, but could fail. I mean, I could share an entire list, and maybe it is a, if these things go this year, I'm going to get them replaced type conversation within budget, and we can talk if it's over budget, which hasn't happened historically. But-
And I don't know if you even need to do that. I think if we just look at the policy and maybe change some wording in the policy to reflect what we feel we're doing and what you feel you're doing, it'll probably take care of the issue.
I could bring that back.
Yeah, we can definitely bring it back. I think it's the dollar amount, that's the trigger. So we could look at if the language being, if it's this dollar amount and not within budget,
Yeah, I
Says-
think maybe that.
or something like that.
I think it's
Try to work
more-
on that.
I think it's more not within budget than
Yeah.
it's the dollar amount, because I know, and not to give you the history again, but we basically, probably even when Joe Schrader was here, we talked about that dollar amount, raising it, lowering it, whatever, and it always came back to, we really kind of want to know what those big dollar amounts are when they're being spent. So we left it where it was. We even may have raised it at one time to that threshold, but we weren't real comfortable going any higher because the board really wanted to know when there was big ticket dollar or amounts and things that people are going to see being done in the community, that we know what they are.
One thing I hope too is, even here, there's a bidding process, and in the policy, it does not require a bid process, but I've tried, I can't remember a single time outside of that pipe break where I haven't still bid out a project in an emergency situation. So trying to still get the best dollars, the best value for what we're doing, because in the end, I own my budget too. I don't want to go over budget. I'd like to make it stretch as far as we can.
I think when that would be a true emergency, and you're probably talking like a fire or something like that, where you just have to have cleanup, or a tornado or something like that, where you
Flooding.
have to have cleanup, and you're not going to be able to bid it out. You're just going to have to go with who is,
Yep.
So any further discussion? Jeremiah, I do want to be clear, though, it is very much appreciated, you and the other department heads, that you stay within budget. So I want to note that you have, and it is appreciated. But this seems more cleanup on our end, in guidance for you, so,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks.
I agree.
Any, okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That had to be carried. Moving on to item 9, discussion items. A, 2020-2021 budget, standing items.
I just didn't want to forget it this time.
Thank you. Neola, item B, Neola policy review. This is only the first review. If you have specific questions or comments, you can email them, we can discuss them here if we really need to, or this goes, the bulk of these, except the one that I'm gonna bring up individually, go take 3 times to get through us. So, outside of this item I want to bring up, is there any discussion on this?
Well, Brett did bring forward four policies. One was on use of social media, and the questions are there. Tony, did you have a chance to look at that? Do you have a response?
Yeah, if you want me to just kind of go in line, doesn't have it in front of them. The first one was in 75.
Actually, it's in their doc.
Yeah, it's actually.
Yeah, we have
it's in
it.
I
yeah.
We do.
copied it for them.
Oh, got it, sorry. I don't see that. All right, so 7540.02, I think the question was whether or not the audit will occur, and then the question was, are we removing the minimum requirements? Actually, to my knowledge, there wasn't a minimum requirement. This was just a recommendation. Doesn't mean we shouldn't have something. I looked into some of the other policies, and there's one that's a next for as necessary, which I think might be more appropriate for us, because in this case, web accessibility was brought by the Office of Civil Rights. There were certain lawsuits that were coming off the websites that had accessibility features on their site. I would say we are in compliance, and we work with our website host to do that. And in this case, I feel as necessary would be more appropriate, then it would actually be a time frame. So if you're comfortable with that, I could add that in as that, or open to a recommendation.
Well, as necessary is not specific at all. I mean, somebody can feel 10 years is necessary, some people can feel once a month is necessary.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, would it be prudent to have at least a minimum? On here it says 2 years, I mean, we could say 5 years, but I would hate to just kind of leave it out in the ethosphere,
Yeah.
you know, that we're not following through on what we're setting a policy up.
Right, well, the thing that might come into play is if we were to do a formal audit, we have to hire an outside resource to do that, which I don't have a quote on that, but I know it's not a cheap thing. Let's say it's a couple grand to do something like that. Also, on norm, it's every 5 years we redo our website altogether. So we've been on that path, and we've got a new website coming out this summer again, which then puts us back into compliance when we rewrite. So I'm not afraid to put in some type of time frame. I actually don't know what the appropriate time frame is. I know they're suggesting 2, as they're advising above, but that's basically saying we're going to pay to have someone audit our site every 2 years and go what.
But when we redo the site, it is built into,
Correct, it is.
Oh.
Yep, the new site is completely revamped and then hits all the marks with that we're required to by that. It's no longer grandfathered in.
so can we build that into it? Just
Sure.
some wording that says, whenever there's, how do you phrase that
The
technically?
website review, that this would be
Review and
covered.
redesign, yeah, sure.
Yeah, redesign, thank you. At least that way we have a solid foundation to actually say we have something to look it over.
I honestly, that policy does not make sense, and I talked to you about, it doesn't make any sense to me because it always just keeps saying the socially approved district, whatever, and I'm like, well, what are you approving? Like, I don't understand that verbiage. It just doesn't,
Well, that's the 7544, the next.
oh, sorry,
That's
okay,
fine.
yep,
That's fine.
yeah, that,
Brett noted on that one, I can come back with new phrasing.
Okay, thank you.
7544, the superintendent district administrator is charged with designating the district approved social media platform sites, which are listed on the district's website. The comment was made is I think it's important before it gets updated on any changes to the approved list. This is one of those things where we use social media as platforms for communication, and then other media and apps get used as platforms for educational practices. This rotation is as common as probably our lunch looks like on a regular basis, because there are new apps that are introduced on a regular basis, and while they have to be held up to a certain level to meet FERPA and other laws, we probably wouldn't want to burden the board with the routine changes that come with that. The ones that we use for marketing and communications maybe change once every couple of years, because they're the staples: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those are the things. So there really isn't a routine change. And it's again, an opportunity that we could inform the board of those changes, but really it's.
And that's all I really think we just need is just to say, hey, because that gives the board the opportunity to say, why are we on this Tinder? What benefit is?
Sure, well, that would be interesting.
Yeah, but you understand, it gives us the opportunity to know,
Interesting,
wait a
right? You
minute.
brought that up.
I've heard,
Yeah. Interesting choice to.
well, that's why, that was the purpose of it, to give that extreme example. But something like Facebook, oh, hey, why are we on Facebook? What is the, it gives us that opportunity to really dive into it.
Well, if you're okay with this, how about if we were to add a social media channel of sorts?
Just still.
but the thing that doesn't make sense to me with this policy is that you're not listing out what those are. So it's like.
I don't think we want to list them in the policy,
Right?
but I think we do need to be
But
updated
where
that
would,
all of a
but
sudden
where would a
we're-
person find that information though? So that's why I'm like, this policy doesn't really buzz me.
Well, we're very public with it from that regard. We wouldn't hide it because it would be focused.
But how do I not know that you're not into TikTok and that's like your app and that's the thing that you're using and that's, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing listed, so it's just kind of obscure. It's such a strange policy. I just don't understand how you can get by without listing what the board approves or the district approves. It's like,
And to be honest, I'm not sure if we've ever asked, not because we wouldn't want to, but they seem to be the more obvious ones that we would do based on our Whisper network and work that Kate does with her network to say these are the ones that would be reasonable and responsible to use. But I have no issue with informing the board by any means of getting any feedback, but they just don't change that often either. And we're not the first ones to dip into it. If the district were to do TikTok as an example, as an official, that could be years from now. We're always like 5 years too late, and the kids never want to use it, the adults do. That's kind of how we use social media, for the most part.
TikTok,
Well, I'm just-
I'm
yeah,
learning
it's-
that now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right, so, but I get your point too. We kind of get the recommendations from the OLA, and if you don't take one part, maybe.
right, it's just, I just don't really care for this policy because it's just not specific enough for me. I guess I'm so used to policies within my hospital setting that are very specific, and this is just so vague, and I'm like, what's the point of this? I don't know. Because, I mean, you have district employees that use YouTube for a lot of their stuff, and I mean, would you think YouTube, or would you think Instagram? I don't know, it's just too vague for me. I just don't care for it.
Do we have samples that are just maybe do other districts struggle with this, or is this?
I could ask Neola.
I mean, I'm just curious, because, I mean, this is our first cake thing.
Right,
So
this-
I'm curious if you've got information on what everyone else does.
We'll bring this one back.
Yeah, and basically, it's just, I think the board should know what platforms we're on or have that ability to find out easily.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to why that. I mean, I agree. I don't know if it's just enough to say here, here's the published, like the policy says the superintendent or designee will have a published list that's available for inspection. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it just may be that, and then we just go to it. I mean, I don't want the policy to be so detailed that.
No, I agree,
It's a good
I agree. It's just
Yeah.
something that we should be
Where is
able
that
to know.
list?
Yeah, it's just, and then you have someone that manages that
Something.
list that's available for inspection and blah. Or, I mean,
And I don't know what, I was able to see this list before and now I'm not. Is anybody else having issues with when you click on the here? Because I'm not able to see before I was able to see all of the different
are you talking
policies.
the policies?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to be logged into your email,
I thought
I had mine all up before though.
because
I
it's
don't know,
going,
I
it's
just-
going
'cause
through
now it's
Google
going to
Docs.
Yeah, because now it's going to Chromebook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was seeing them before, that's why I don't understand why I'm having
The other
issues.
two, well, try it again, and
I
then,
don't know.
There's one more part to this one.
Oh,
If that's okay. It was the point about the district recognizes that employees may use social media for personal as well as professional reasons. The part that's stated below is that it's the emphasis on shall not use district media platforms for personal reasons. Technically, in the verbiage, it didn't say district social media platforms, it just said social media for personal use. That was my interpretation, that we were allowing staff to use social media for personal as well as professional reasons, as long as it does not inhibit.
And I just want to make sure that it's clear. It did seem still a little,
Right, and
Yeah.
they walk that line all the way through, that part really hasn't been much of a change. It's just to say that,
yep.
as we kind of chatted about before, the Twitter piece, again, that's a personal account. We're understanding a staff may have that as long as it's not interrupting anything, even though I use Twitter for the district purposes. But there's just one example of that. Another is that, if it's during a non-instructional time, that's where we've allowed that type of use. So I think it keeps the door open for that. But I don't know if we need to stipulate that this does not also include using district media.
Well, what
use, but I don't know if that's actually.
I don't have a problem with, say, like, Tony, if you suddenly come out and use your own Twitter account to say Muskego, Norway, something, that's fine, because it's your personal account referencing, but using a business one, or using the work
Yeah.
one to do something more personal, I think, is where we supporting a presidential candidate or something like that, that's where,
Of course.
and that's where I want to make sure it's clear that, okay, you can state whatever you want over on your personal account,
I don't think this one addresses that. I
Yeah.
think there is another policy that does though.
yeah.
And can-
But I just want to make sure that the staff know there's a clear delineation between what you can do on the staff accounts, on the,
Jeremiah, that's why I want to interrupt you, Brett, but is there a policy more on conduct and those kind of things and speech or like that? I thought there was something, this one's just saying,
It's like an ethics policy.
I think there's something related to that. I can try to track that
Hey,
down.
we could even tie it in,
Yeah.
guidelines per policy.
Yeah, I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, again, I can talk to Richard or Neil about, find out exactly the intent of the social media policy, but at least we are allowing, we recognize staff may use social media for personal, but they're still held to a level of professionalism and
Mhm.
conduct as an employee.
Yeah.
With that, just for the reference of the policy. If you want us to reference that in this policy.
That might be the easiest way to do it, yeah.
All right, thank you, Tony.
Yep.
Thank you for
Thanks,
your
Tony.
questions, Board. Then we have two
Are you-
other policies. One is the child abuse and neglect, and the question was why change from shall to may, notifying the building level administrator. And it's because the law indicates that mandated reporters can keep their reporting confidential. They don't have to tell anybody, so we
Okay.
can't require them to. So they can make a report about a child abuse or neglect without telling their supervisor.
Is that a recent
Okay.
change then, or, because it was shall,
Right,
and now they're changing it to, is that just something they caught, or,
yeah.
okay?
Changed at our work too.
And then the threat assessment, this is, they're working with the DPI and the Department of Justice to kind of make these changes. So I'm not sure, I mean, I probably have to have Kari contact you about the ongoing team case by case. They're just trying to set up a process that's nice and clear and concise.
And that's why I asked this.
Yeah.
Is this going to be an ongoing team in each school that is prepared as best we can for situation, or is this just on a case-by-case basis where,
Like, who's going to be involved?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what
like,
you're
if all of a
saying.
sudden
So
we
it
have-
might not always be a school psychologist involved, like, that's a bad one to choose, but maybe even the instructional personnel, I guess that would look different. I guess all of these categories would be involved.
yeah. I mean, what I'm envisioning is we have a team that's prepares as best it can for something, and when it does happen, we know that, okay, we need the school psychologist involved, we need the principal, and we need a
Yeah, but
social
it
worker.
might be a different school psychologist, it might be a different school counselor, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then at the elementary level, it might not be the SRO that's assigned to their building because that person's not there, so they have to call somebody else. But these titles are consistent, I mean, but, yeah. So it's just sort of saying whoever is the most appropriate person to be put on, which would likely be some kind of school, student services personnel, likely be a teacher or something like that, but maybe not, kind of depending on the situation. And then SROs if that's appropriate. So it's just kind of giving the leeway.
So this is a very fluid team. It's not a
Right.
structure, okay.
Yeah. And
Which
then
is
you're-
kind of what my question was.
Okay.
If it was a more structured team, I would definitely want the SRO on the team
Yeah.
for those situations where they were needed.
They're usually on consult, but not all the time. Sometimes you have to go right to the police, so it really kind of depends. And then adding team or team members perfectly fine, so we'll add that for the next.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this isn't, do we have something more specific than threat? Do we have bomb threat? Do we have personal threat? Do we have, or is this just threats in general?
We can look into that.
Okay, because it would be I would think you'd have a different policy
Yeah,
for
absolutely,
that.
different protocol
Right,
to follow.
right.
Yeah. Yes.
From a personal threat to a
Yes,
bomb threat to a,
Yes.
And that's what I was
Social
kind of
benefit.
picturing, was we have an overall team, and then the individual situations,
but
that team
every-
is different.
Yeah,
Within the-
exactly.
Or the team members involved would be different, so, okay.
Okay, so we'll bring back the threat assessment intervention with that change of team to team member. And Tony will bring back both of those policies that with some suggested changes. Okay.
So, can I just ask, and I know Tracy's brought this up in the past about the massive overload we have, even though we have 3 readings for it. It does get a bit wieldy. Is this how Neola does it? They do it all at once, which seems just very
Twice a year.
Yeah.
bulky, to be honest.
It is, and.
I mean, I'm just getting started, I hate to tell you
I know.
I
that.
mean, but we've got really 3 or 4 months to do it. I mean, we can always
Yeah.
push this on.
There's so many policies that that's
And
why.
not a lot of them have a lot of change. I mean,
Right.
we try to really highlight like the one that we're gonna be.
And we're just going
forward.
through it,
Yeah.
we're still on our 3rd year of it, or 4th?
No, there's probably some every year.
Yeah, right.
They're
because
probably
you
all
haven't
on a
began,
cycle
right?
every 3 years. At least that's how we do it.
Yeah.
There's like a group every 3
Yeah,
years
I think
that
that's
just,
what-
so you're always having
We've really
this,
gone through that full gamut, yeah.
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 But we have a whole committee that handles it. So,
Yeah.
So,
So, but if they, yeah, okay.
so then, this is the first round, take a look at the draft, when they set that down again, we'll go through the chop at it. Okay,
Mhm.
we'll be fine. There's one here that I wanna, can everyone click on the here? Can you get to it?
I can't get into
More
it, so
specific policy
You can-
0162.
I logged into my
Yeah.
email and everything, and it's just still going to the Chromebook.
So policy 0162 is highlighted on here. You go to here, and then it'll take you to a district recommended changes policy. Right below child abuse, threat assessment, there's policy for a quorum.
I'd like to bring policy 0162 forward for immediate action.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
What was the number again?
0162, bottom left.
Way on the bottom,
Eric, is
way
there
on
a
the bottom.
second?
It's a district
In yellow.
one.
Yes, I
Oh,
second.
it's, yeah,
The yellow one.
second.
Eric seconded.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
so policy 0162 is up for discussion and under consideration for immediate action. For that to happen, it requires a unanimous decision of the entire board present. So just so we're clear, what I'm trying to do and why I'm doing this is policy 0162 basically states that 4 members physically present at a meeting shall constitute a quorum, and no business shall be conducted in the absence of a quorum, period. What I'm suggesting we change it to, and waiving the second and third reading and move for immediate action, is to change it to 4 members physically present at or virtually connected into with board president's prior approval at a meeting shall constitute a quorum. And given our current situation, our crisis that we're going through now, it may well be where Dr. Thompson and I need to come here, open up the meeting, and then we all dial in as we're doing right now. And then virtually we can constitute a quorum. And then if at some point the board would like to rescind that after the emergency, we can certainly do that as well. So that's what I'm asking for. So the vote, right now, we have 2 votes. One, we're going to vote right now that we're okay to take this under immediate action, and it will require a unanimous consent of the board. And then after that vote, we will move to bring this item on the floor for immediate action.
Point of order, since it does require unanimous, and we have 3 members on the phone, a roll call vote would be in order, I
Yes.
believe? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so
So at
you
this-
you motioned it, it's on the floor.
And then you
Now we
seconded
need a motion to waive the second and third readings, correct?
Correct.
All right, so Brett, you want to make that motion to waive the second and third readings?
Can I just amend the
Yeah.
motion?
No, just make a motion
Okay,
to
I'll make a
waive
motion to,
second and third. I will second it.
Before, okay, did you do discussion yet or not?
So all we're doing right now is we're
Bring it
voting to
forward.
waive the second and third readings.
Right, and then by doing that, if the board agrees, it will be placed on the floor for immediate action.
Then we can
one more
talk about
point of clarification. If it does get unanimous action to bring forward, then it just needs a simple majority.
Correct,
passed.
correct.
Just so did everybody get that on the phone, I trust?
Yeah, got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, currently, right now, we have policy 0162 on the floor, and the motion is to waive the second and third reading. All those in favor, I'm sorry, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Mrs. Blair?
Are we not discussing? Or
We're just
We
going
have
to bring
to-
it forward at this
All
point.
right, go ahead, yes.
Mr. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Buckmaster?
Yes.
Mrs. Baus?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 7-0 to waive second and third readings.
And by virtue of that, thank you, so now the consideration for immediate action on the policy change is now on the floor for
Motion,
discussion.
motion to approve policy, oh, did you
We're
want?
already there.
Yeah.
We're already on.
Oh, it is on the floor,
I am
okay.
just stating that it's now
Okay.
on the floor. We have waived the second and third reading, so the motion to amend this policy is now on the floor for immediate action.
Or discussion.
Yeah, for discussion. So, any discussion?
You're looking at me.
Well, you asked, if you have a,
Well, okay, because I think the whole word virtual has got to be either audio, visual, or texting. Because you can lose people off of your intercom or what, like you have to, I think, specify what you're saying is virtual.
texting is hard because you can't get there's no way to know if,
Who's behind it?
Yeah,
Or, yeah.
I disagree. I think we should leave it open to any virtual method that gets the person there.
well, the texting is a hard one. I don't know if that applies because you can't. I
That's what I'm
don't
saying,
know.
you have to somehow verify that you're virtual person.
Or say by voice.
Yeah, and I think.
Audio or visual?
Yeah, audio, we could say, or virtually connected,
Yeah.
you could say,
Virtually present by audio or a visual
virtually
connection.
connected by audio or visual means.
There you go.
Two-way communication?
Is that good?
By audio.
Or
visual
visual
means.
means.
Is that would be good?
I think you just have to,
I'd say visual with audio, because you don't just want visual.
So
I'd say
she's-
video with audio
What she's
or
saying,
audio.
right, what she's saying is by audio or by audio visual
And/or.
means.
right.
Yes, because we need to make sure that there's a way, not for one of us to just hear what's going on, but to respond in real time.
Correct.
Yep.
You say audio as, sorry to interrupt,
Well,
audio
that's-
as primary with video as option two?
Well, what she's saying is you either have to connect by audio means or by audio visual
And the
means.
constant is audio, both of those, do you think that audio is the?
So then it would be audio or audio.
I think you
visual.
can leave it at either or. It's just
Yeah.
that you need to specify what visual
Okay.
means in your,
Yeah.
because it's a big deal.
Yeah, the
I mean,
point here is just to get the quorum virtually outside of a physical presence, and if we define virtual as audio/audio visual means, that's fine. I mean, if the board's fine
The
with that.
point is to be in real time and it's the specific individual. Because you're not going to be able to know. Like you said, if it was texting, you would know who's behind the texting.
My only comment is, did you have something, Bob?
I think there was Terry.
Oh, was that Terry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I just want to make sure that we are audio where we can hear each other's voice, and we are not considering texting, emailing, or anything. We need to be in context and hearing each other's voices, correct?
Absolutely.
Real time.
Absolutely. 'Cause I think that we all need to be able to communicate quickly, like within seconds, and there's too much of even a delay, like even beyond the not knowing who's on the other end, there's too much of a delay. It's not going to be a meaningful conversation with either email or text.
I think when we do this, and there are some, actually attended a webinar on the,
I'm not loud enough?
at the
None of them are
WESB the years ago, and there are ways to do a virtual session. One, we just use a lot of roll call votes, and we're trying to adjust the way the meeting is run to accommodate the online, right? So, but I understand. I'm just not sure if how detailed we want to get here. Is it enough to just say 4 members physically present or virtually connected in real time, audio/audio visual? Boom. Is that good?
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it.
Okay.
Tony?
Okay.
So procedurally, that's
Yep.
fine, but I hope that we can come up with a little better technology than the, what we have. I know this was a, yeah, but I think going forward, if we can come up with something that works, like a GoToMeetings, my daughter has one she uses at the university that works out really well for her classes. So if we can come up with something a little bit better, I have a feeling we may have the next meeting very similar to what we're doing.
I think you're
Or even
right.
as you, just the two of you.
And maybe this grows into something that would allow for that.
Well, and it would be nice if somebody has to stay home with their kids or something, to be able to have a better means of communication and still be involved. I know there was one time that I had to stay home, and it was tough I had to listen through the TV in order to hear it because the speaker system wasn't good. But then if I wanted to contribute, I had to turn on the TV, turn up the speaker volume to be heard, and, it was a little bit of a delay. So whatever we can do to make, I think it's just going to be the way things are going to be in the future.
We have a system, it's called Google Meet. We're just using the teleconferencing function of it at this point, where we can have every member.
And I think for a long-term thing, as long as we're wording it that it's, by approval of the school board president, that this isn't something, because I think you do, we are all really close to each other, distance-wise, and I think you do lose something when you don't have that face-to-face contact, and it's not like we're required to be there constantly, but, there are emergency situations, and this is one of them. So to come up with something that's flexible enough that we can all, have our voices heard and hear the information, if we want to work out the kinks to the plan or, change it, I think this is something to get us going with the current situation now.
There's one other thing I just thought of. We have it with the board president's prior approval. What if there's a situation where we have an emergency meeting and the board president's not available? Should we change that to presiding officer, which 99 times out of 100 is going to be the board president? But,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
That
Just so we have that flexibility.
That would be clear then.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. The one thing with these virtual meetings, though, it will require I do these a lot, and be prepared. It does require you to do your homework ahead of time. There can be no just banter, this just wanting to be talk and all this stuff. Just because you're virtual and you can't have this face-to-face, it does require us to do our homework and look at this stuff and email and get questions answered that can best be answered outside of the meeting, because technology itself, there are challenges. And you definitely want every board member heard, as Cassandra and Terry and Bob said. But so there are some things that, in order to really adopt a robust online and have a virtual presence, it does require us to do our homework. Just laying that out. Not suggesting we don't, but myself as well. The way we run it will need to be a little bit slower. So we are doing roll call votes, so no one does feel left out, right? So we're actually calling on people, right? So.
Do you want to put that in the policy that?
No,
roll call?
I think we're fine.
Okay.
I don't want this policy to be so big.
Okay, yeah, I agree. That's why I asked.
This really is not a huge deal. It's, as Cassandra says, it's really just to get us past this crisis. If this works and the board feels they would like to adopt this and create a more robust policy for different methods of technology, great. So this may be we'll pioneer a path here.
Baby
But,
steps, though, because
yeah,
I don't want
right.
to see this policy be abused, so.
Exactly.
Tony has one more thing to add.
Yeah, sorry, no, that's fine. I was just going to add quickly, the terms I think we might be looking for are teleconferencing and video conferencing.
Right.
Got it.
And maybe that defines a little clearer and then more up-to-date and audiovisual, so,
I wrote that to him, I said,
yeah.
Quick question for you, Tony, in your
Say it
Google,
again, Tony?
Teleconferencing and video conferencing.
Teleconferencing.
And then we actually eventually can look into what, if either or both are approved by law to do.
And if you look up like virtual meetings via Robert's rules, there are three, it's point of privilege, point of information, and extended limited domain. There's actually like a specific thing that you're, like, the point of privilege says that you should not have extra noise. The noise level should be non-existent or medium, or minimum. The point of information, like you kind of were hinting, the fact that you got to get to the point. And then extended limit debate, that it should be,
Yep.
should be allowed for the people that are on the conversation. However, it's a group leader to state the rules. So they do, I mean, there's actually information out there for this, so.
so is, in that Google Meetings?
Yes.
Is it possible, is there some way, a mechanism where you can alert the president that somebody wants to talk remotely and just is waiting for the opportunity?
No,
Okay.
no.
I suppose maybe a text would work there, too.
It'll require me to basically say, basically, all right, maybe make a few round robins. Okay, check for discussion. Tracy, Brett, that will require me to manage that, and there are methods to do that, and I'm more than happy to do it. It's just that when you're virtual, it does just by the very essence of being virtual, your time is extended a bit. So that's the whole idea of knowing your information ahead of time and being summarized, succinct, and to the point. And, obviously, if you don't know, you want to ask, right? But outside of that, and like I said, this is just to get us through this crisis. This is really what this is about. So we're still able to conduct business within the law because we're not excused from that. The law is the law. So, we're basically being advised to make sure we're able to function. And this is the way to do it.
And we can do all this legally, correct? I mean, the state law allows
Yes.
us to do a virtual,
Yes,
conduct meetings virtually when,
yes.
okay.
If anyone wants to,
Chris, how do we handle people who want to attend the meeting for the open meetings? Like if there's a topic that they want to come to, but there's more than 10?
So that's a good question, Bob. So there are methods where you can publish the Google Meeting information so they can go in and,
Yep.
Tony?
yes, we
Yep.
could.
Yeah.
It would then, I think our restriction, which I doubt we would go over at this point, is 250 individuals could be patched into one meeting at one time. Again, I don't think we've reached that floor, but you never know. It could be popular. And we can also record them. And then maybe more, Brett, to your point, there's a chat feature where someone could mention that they have a question or something too, that could be raised that way.
That's why I asked you, so you can come up with something?
Yeah, kind of like raising the
Bless you,
hand,
bless
but
you.
not as accurate, bless you.
Yes.
And I think, Bob, to your point too, our attorneys or the WASB attorneys have said that, I mean, there has to be reasonable accommodations and reasonable access. And it's during these times, you do what's reasonable changes, right? And so you just do the best you can to accommodate a transparent process, right? So you're not trying to, so Tony, we'll see what if you can wow us here with some good technology and.
Yeah, and I apologize, Google is our free resource, and so it's great for us to take advantage of that if we can. If we need to upgrade to something else, certainly we can do that, plenty of options out there. And then I was just going to mention real quickly, and for the members on the phone, if you want to sample this feature, happy to do a one-on-one, even remotely, I can talk you through that, so then you feel comfortable for the next meeting, if that's going to be the way we meet, so.
One question about that. Do you have the ability to mute some and not all?
I think you do, when you start the meeting, the person who has assigned it or created it has the ability. They're basically running the show.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I know some are like mute all,
Yes.
or they have to mute themselves. That might end up being a problem if we have people from outside of our board coming into that. So we might want to just check and make sure that we have the ability to mute some.
Yeah, this will probably be a new precedent to go virtual everywhere, right, of all entities, potentially other than some physically. But if you're here, would the door be open for people to come here?
Yeah, but they were just saying if there's more than 10 that show up, are they going to have
Yeah,
an
we would-
opportunity then to?
We would probably have to deal with that, but, I mean, I do these quite a bit online and with the number of people, and I can handle the mute all, and, you know, we've got the board members I can not, and then we can even have chats where, hey, you know, you can just throw up a hand, right? Hit it, and so I think we can walk through all that and grow on that, but the idea is that, yeah, the board, and remember, it's the board's meeting that's held in public, it's not a public meeting. So, big distinction there. So, you know, but we want to be open as reasonably as we can, and still meet these emergency guidelines of not having more than 10, right? And because we really want to model that, because that's what we're asking our community to do, and we want to show that, yeah, you can still function, right?
So is that why that wasn't on the agenda for tonight?
It was a recent, right, it was.
So like, because it didn't have, like, is there anyone here for open discussion? Because that's not like listed on the agenda item.
There is no open discussion.
Well, like if someone came here with a question, they can,
No, it has to be on the agenda.
oh, it has to be on.
Yeah. If they have an open discussion, we have one public meeting a year, and that's the annual. So,
And we have that online that they know how to do that. Yeah. I think I remember asking about that. Yeah.
All right, we need a vote.
yep, so any other discussion? Any discussion online?
That's you guys.
No, I think this doesn't have to be a be-all and end-all final policy. I think it needs to be good enough to get us through. It's just a
Yep.
Band-Aid for the situation we're in right now. We
Well
need to make
said.
it good enough right now.
Okay, so having no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
It threw me off. Mrs. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Buckmaster?
Yes.
Mrs. Baus?
Yes.
I'm a yes, we have 7.
Okay, the motion to amend and adopt the policy passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very, very helpful.
Yes. Okay, now as we. Okay, on to item 10, information follow-up. We have no communications and miscellaneous businesses authorized by law. At this point, motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cassandra, Terry.